Hello, everybody. My apologies for being late.
Hey,
We,
no problem.
we can go ahead and get
I mean,
started. We've got a big announcement today. Is there anybody else you want to wait for? Switch from my phone to my computer here. All right.
Okay, so today is a big day for our team here. I guess I'll pull up the notes and we can just go according to the agenda from last time. Am I audible, by the way?
yes.
Great. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Let's go for, I'll share my screen here in just a minute. So good. My best method task force. We've got a couple open items to review. Let's just pull up the meeting minutes. Almost there. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Give me just a moment here. Let's do. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Right. Let me just resize this and it's there. Great. Okay, so we'll just sort of copy the meeting minutes for today and we'll start with the items from last time. So as far as how we run the meetings, I like how in some of the other meetings we do sort of reports and announcements. Jonathan, do we have any announcements for today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll announce the status of the diff recommended process maybe, and then you can
Yeah,
go from there. So we do
sounds good to
have
me.
I'm gonna paste this URL into the chat. This is the URL for the pull request at the did methods working group at diff repo. This pull request is the one that marks did WebS as a diff recommended did method, and the creation of this PR represented the beginning of the 60-day formal review period for that. And so what happens now is comments and questions on the did method or concerns will be posted as comments on this PR and worked and resolved over the course of the next 60 days. I think the waiting period is up, yeah, 4th of April. So on the 4th of April, then assuming all of the concerns and questions have been resolved, then did WebS will become a diff recommended did method.
I guess I just remembered that we agreed to swap the order of the meeting today. So that's right. So and for future reference, it's the dossier spec discussion. So let's actually my apologies. That was totally my bad. So we can swap that around. I see you're here, Daniel. Do you want to take the wheel?
I'm having a really hard time because I'm straddling two different meetings right now because um, uh, the GSMA's pulled me into a urgent meeting. I have an open PR for some changes to the dossier spec, and I have not received any comments on it, but it's been sitting there for several weeks, and I think I might just go ahead and merge it and then move on to the next PR. There's plenty of PRs that need to come down the pipe, and this is kind of, I think it's had some cook time. But there's not really a whole lot of extra stuff to say, unless anybody has questions for me.
Anybody have questions for Daniel on the dossier spec or the open PRs?
Nope.
Okay, if that's a no, what else do you have any announcements or reports, Daniel, for the dossier spec?
Well, I would just say that that we're working on the question of how do you behave in a mode where you're doing joint issuance, and this has brought up a couple of operators that we want to introduce in the ACDC spec that let us talk about what kind of joint issuance behavior a particular ACDC is expecting. And there are ways that that could be configured. And so if that tickles any interest in people, go read the current PR. But other than that, no, I don't have any announcements. There's no specific deadlines that I'm trying to hit at this point. Just kind of working my way through the problem space.
Okay. And I imagine is it just the KSWG dossier spec you're
Yes.
referring to? Okay, I'll go ahead and put a link to your PR in the
Okay.
notes in case anybody wants to review it.
Okay.
Also got just the dossier spec itself, and I'll post a link to these notes in the chat if anybody wants to see it. Okay.
And
That's
when
good.
Daniel's referring to operators, these are edge operators on edge groups.
Okay.
And also
All right.
edges, sorry, both edge groups and edges.
Edge groups and edges. Okay, so with that, any further questions or anything else on the dossier spec from anybody before we move on? Okay, if not, then we will go and move on to the DidWebS portion of the agenda. And I did things a little bit out of order this morning, so I'll actually say the antitrust policy notice now. I don't see anybody here that I don't recommend, or I mean, that I don't recognize. I would recommend all of you, yes. So, all right, we just need to adhere to the meeting agenda and not participate in activities prohibited under the antitrust laws. Only members of TOIP who have signed the necessary agreements are permitted to participate in this activity beyond an observer role. Do we have any new members? It doesn't look like it. I guess there's some people I've seen in other meetings that might be new to this meeting. Alec, Keanu, and Jay Alexander. And are you all, is this your first DidWebS meeting or your second?
No, this is my eighth, I think.
Eighth? Okay. I guess I
Well-
haven't been paying attention.
Well,
Well, no, oof.
Because this one happens once
I've
a
been,
month.
second one. My bad.
Oh, okay. Got it. Like, are there meetings happening without me?
His eighth Tuesday morning meeting.
I see. Okay.
My bad. Yeah.
I'd be delighted if there were DidWebS meetings happening without me, because that would mean there's more activity. Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on here. So we got the recording going. Let's go ahead and move on to take a quick look of action items from the previous meeting. So this spec lint still needs to occur. There's a lot of definitions I need to get with you, Hank. We need to just so now that my comments have been in there, we've got one more review coming from Jonathan, and after Jonathan's review, then I need to get with you, Hank, to sort of review how to properly claim and manage the definition. So that's still an open item.
Yeah,
We
there's
did
no urgency to that one because you got your definitions settled, so that's all right, but we can do that later as a form of an integration.
Great. Okay. For this next item, this is complete. We actually indicated informative and normative throughout the whole spec. We removed the did web from the also known as and made that clear in the spec. So the spec has been updated. I don't believe the implementation has yet, so I'll just put that as an action item for next time. Oh, it looks like I've got it down here. So we updated the spec, but the implementation has not happened yet. So I'll leave that there. All right, move excessively informative language to the body of the spec into an annex. A lot of that's been done through the edits as we've moved it down, so that's been completed. So we had a spec update. Okay. Announcements, we started that. That's where we jumped the gun a little bit today. We went straight to announcements. So we do have the PR from you, Jonathan, that I just placed in the announcements here. There's the, if we go there, let's jump in here. This is the PR to the decentralized identity / did methods repo. And if I understand correctly, this is what will, once it's merged, show did WebS as a diff recommended did method. Is that correct?
Yeah. If you look at the files changed, you'd see that matrix is going to be on the README. Shows did WebS at the top there.
I see.
It says yes.
Got it.
Yes,
Yeah.
the second call.
That's cool.
So when this finally gets merged, then did WebS will move to the top of the matrix along with did web VH and theoretically did web plus, but as a diff recommended did method.
Right. Cool. So anybody that wants to track that progress can track just this PR here, and that is also in the announcement section of the meeting notes.
Correct. And I guess it's worth noting that anybody from this group that wants to contribute to any of the comments or answer any questions or whatever in that repo, that diff repo, is welcome to do so. The did methods working group at diff is a joint collaboration between diff, trust over IP, and W3C. So members of any of those three groups are able to contribute.
All right. Is there anything else? So you mentioned the 60-day formal review period. 4th of April is going to be when that waiting period is up. So we're already a couple weeks in. And I believe that's essentially the report from this group. Well, close. Are there? I don't think there are any other announcements that we have. Seems like the only one. Well, I'll do a quick. Go ahead.
Well, Ken, I've done my review, so I don't know where you are in terms of wanting to submit this to whatever the next step is in the
yeah, that's right.
review
You did.
process. I mean, we had talked about that at the last KSWG working group meeting. I'm sure that I'm still going to have other little edits and clarifications that I'm going to want to make, but I don't have any major things to change. So I don't know.
Okay.
Again, I don't know how baked we want this to be before we would do whatever the next thing is.
Okay.
If it has to be like 100% baked, or if it can be like 95% baked, I just don't know what the next step is. So
Okay, let's actually talk about that in the discussion. How baked do we want this to be for this iteration? All right, so we're sort of crossing over into reports as well. I'll just do a quick report. I did finish my review of everything in the spec up that's normative. And so what I mean by that is if we go to KSWG, let's go to the actual spec here. If we go down, okay, right before the carry fundamentals. So this is essentially a big, long, informative section. I reviewed everything up to this section, which is all the normative language. All the normative language occurs before this section. From here on out, it's essentially an in-body annex, talks about carry, and we've got security considerations. Well, I guess some of this is normative down here. So I'm wrong there. I'm showcasing one of the bugs in spec up T right now. If you select any of the text, then it scrolls up really fast. I opened a bug to the spec. Okay. No, I actually did read through all these. That's right. Okay. So it looks like to me that we could, there were a couple of problems. I think I mentioned this in the last did WebS spec meeting. There was a math error in the threshold calculation for the multi-sig. There were a couple of other small things, but the spec was mostly accurate. So spec review, I'll just say from Kent.
did you update the math error?
Yeah, I did. I fixed it. All language. All right. So that's all from me. We've got all that merged, and we cleaned up the repository quite a bit, deleted the old. So we had multiple versions of spec up and spec up T in the repo. We only use one, so we'll deleted everything else, just cleaned up the spec repo, cleaned up the contributors list, and that was all included in my spec review. So that's all on a report for me. And then Jonathan, I know you had a PR that we pulled into that cleaned up
Yeah, I
things
mean, there are a
further.
few things that needed to be cleaned up. The ABNF needed to be updated to match the ABNF for this said URN. I mean, those two should be consistent. Although I did note that in the said URN charter ABNF definition, some of the stuff that I had submitted has been turned into comments as opposed to being explicit. I think in that context, that probably makes sense. But do you want to show the spec? I can really quickly
Yeah.
comment what I'm talking about. If you go to the ABNF definition, which should be up in the core characteristics, yeah. It's going to be in 6 core characteristics.
Okay, core characteristics. There we go.
Uh-huh. So in the and I actually have done a couple minor clarifications to comments, but substantively, this ABNF is the one that I think is the correct DidWebS ABNF. In specifically in this DidWebS spec, I am being 100% explicit about because we're tying this to specifically the Caesar spec, the current approved Caesar spec, and the code tables therein. Therefore, the number of options for the 1 character or 2 character codes for valid sets essentially are a known set. They cannot be anything other than these unless there's a new version of Caesar approved, in which case we will approve a new version of DidWebS. So I'm being explicit to that level of explicitness, I guess, however you say it. I prefer this approach. And in the said approach, the bottom 2 lines or bottom 4 lines there that you have highlighted are comments only. It's a for example. But I would like to be explicit about this and tie it to the current version of Caesar. As I say, if Caesar updates and there are other options for AIDs, I think we should update the version of DidWebS. But
Yeah, I agree with that. When Carly did the did URN said, the feedback from the not the did URN said, the URN said, the feedback from the reviewer didn't like listening explicitly what the current set of codes were. He wanted the spec to say that the valid codes are specified by Caesar.
yeah,
And in his example, the Caesar 1 codes are the current version of Caesar codes are these,
right.
but the actual normative spec is whatever the Caesar spec
Sure.
says are those. So I agree.
Okay, cool. So this is probably the major substantive change to the spec that came from my PR review. There are some other small things that we did. For example, we took the generated docs folder that is created when SpecUpT runs out of source control. There's no reason we want those generated files in source control. They get generated as part of the publish process in the GitHub Action worker containers and stuff, and it actually causes issues if we keep checking in the generated files because they'll, for example, point to local paths on the local machine and things which we don't want in source control. So that has been fixed and works because when Kent merged his PR, everything generated just fine and it was published to the web just fine. So it's not necessary that those be in source control. So a few little things like that have been fixed. in my PR. I will say, Kent, that as I'm just doing my second level of reading top to bottom, there are a few little things I think you and I should get together and just clarify.
Okay.
There probably are just little nuanced sentences here and there that kind of refer to a specific period of time, and we just want to resolve and clarify a few minor things. So I'm aware of a few minor things we want to clarify, but I think in terms of like the broad strokes, the spec is essentially complete. I think it covers everything that needs to be completed, of course. When we started this working group, we did not have a mechanism for multisig fully defined. We did not have a method for delegation fully defined, and that has happened since we've formed this working group. That's all in the spec now. And we've resolved this, also known as issue as well, in terms of whether the did web identifier must or should be in the also known as set. So I think we're largely ready for whatever the next step is to formalize this and to take this up to a 1.0 as opposed to a,
Mm-hmm.
0.9, whatever. What is the next step in that process? Part of the reason I'm asking is that there is some marginal goodness for sure in having the did WebS spec be at 1.0 before April 4th. But I don't know what the timing even like requirements are for that, whether that's even a possibility.
Yeah. Well, I'll just, since we're sort of talking about it already, we'll just move to this discussion area. One thing that was suggested last week that seemed like a good idea was to submit the spec to the Carry Stack Working Group Steering Committee for a week or a 2-week review period. And then after that, to submit it to the broader Trust Over IP Steering Committee for a similar waiting period. And then after that elapses, cut a 1.0.
Sure. So how do we do that?
That is what we are here to discuss. So I'm going to put that in the report here really quickly. Submitting the WebS spec. Let's say pathway to 1.0. Just do 1.0. So if we wanted to submit, so who is on the steering committee for the Carry Stack Working Group? I imagine it would probably be you, Sam, and a couple of others. Is that correct?
Who's on the what committee?
The
Steering committee.
I'm not on the steering committee. It's going to be Nico and Carla.
Okay, Nico and Carla.
I think his question was who from here, because this is a task force, it needs to be approved by the Carry Stack.
Yes, yeah. The Carry Stack Working Group, we need to approve it.
Okay. So
and there's no steering committee for that. There's the co-chairs.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So what we would do is we would have it when it's finalized, and we want to move this to be a Trust Over IP spec itself. Then what we would do is we would have the final draft. We would then have a meeting like this meeting, right, where we would say it's in final form. We would have a resolution that says, does everybody support this as being the final draft version? And we would open it for public review. So this is a legal thing that we have to do in the Trust Over IP. We have to have a public review period. The minimum, I think, is 2 weeks, although they complain if it's not longer than that. Sometimes I don't know that there's going to be a complaint here, but it needs to be enough time for everybody in the community that has a chance. And since we only meet once a month, I might suggest that the public review be for a month until the next meeting, and then we take any feedback or comments at the end of that public review period. And if there aren't any substantive or normative changes, then we vote to approve the spec and forward it to the steering committee. So then it becomes a spec from the Carry Stack Working Group, and then then it goes to steering committee for them to review and approve. Part of that process is to make sure that we have the language in the spec. So if you look at the Carry spec, I think there's a couple of places at the top of the spec, or at least one place where there's a legal disclaimer or something in the spec. So we have to make sure that gets put in there.
This was something that I also tried to handle, Sam, that in the most recent version of the DidWebS spec, there was a section. Yeah, can you go back to the spec?
Yeah. Let me do. Okay, the second one we're gonna go right here.
So in that section,
Sorry, let me put this right here. There we go. Okay, which section?
I need to see the table of contents. Yeah, it was in turn. I actually think I removed the section altogether. There was a section that basically was a copyright section in here that doesn't match. I mean, there is no such section in the carry spec. Instead, it's in the repo itself. There's a whole thing about contributing copyright, what the way, the code contribution guidelines versus the spec contribution guidelines. So if you look in the repo itself, Kent.
Wrong repo. Okay.
You
Copyright
should
policy.
see it in, yeah, you should see it in, go back to the root there. You should see it in patent, I think it's in patent licensing.
So the license, there should be a license file and a license.m and a contributing. For the Carry Stack Working Group, the license we use are the OWF licenses.
So look at the README, the actual README there, Kent.
Okay.
If you see now, there's the contributing and the licensing sections of this spec exactly match what it says in the carry repo.
Okay. Yeah, so that one's right. So if you go back to I'm trying to find that language. There was some paragraph we had to add for trust over IP, but I don't remember where it is that said something about that's a trust over IP.
Yeah, that's the carry spec, Kent.
Yeah, go back to the carry spec. Scroll down. Oh, wait. Let's see. Is under scope? No, that's not it. Maybe it's under terms and definitions. Keep going past that. Oh, no, normative references. What does that say? That just defines what the normative references are. Oh, it just says how they're referred to. So, okay, keep going down. Oh. All right, well, yeah, okay. They may have.
I searched this file for the term copyright, for the term license. It's just not in the spec itself. It seems to be entirely housed in the repo, but
That's right. License is only in the repo.
So was that something that we had to remove? Because I know at one point we had something in the spec that they had originally put in. Do you remember, Hank, how that got removed?
No, I don't. I just know that we are currently working on that license file, and there's an issue open to decide whether there's two license files in the carry repo, but none of them are referenced either explicitly or a link in this spec up T.
Yeah, that may be an oversight.
Okay.
If you don't mind going to, let's see, what's another spec? The ecosystem governance. Now, see, the thing is that Trust RIP didn't have any specs. Maybe the ecosystem governance framework specs. So when we were doing this, they kept changing what they wanted to be in or out of the spec, and usually the copyright is in the spec. So I'm surprised that it got removed. So that's, I think that might be an oversight. I think that that copyright needs to be in the spec, because at one point they said we needed to have it,
So
and we
Ken,
put it in.
if
And
you'll go to the repo, to the PR that you just approved, that we just merged,
Okay. Let me go.
and look at the diff. It's gonna be in, there's a whole file in the specs called status copyright. That whole little chunk of markdown, I deleted. I deleted
Oh, okay.
specifically, I deleted it
Right.
specifically because I was told make this look like the carry spec, and this was not in the carry spec. So I deleted this and I just changed the README in the did WebS spec to match what the README said in the carry spec.
yeah,
But
and I
if
think
this
that's,
little chunk is the chunk you want back, we can put this back in.
yeah, I don't know that it is. There was a specific piece of language that they had asked us to put in, the licenses, and then there were a couple of other things that they said, oh, we need to fill in these sections, and we said, well, tell us what they need to be, and that went on for months, and they finally said, oh, we don't need those. But I
Okay.
remember there was one section that they asked us to put in that I thought was not the specific license, like the contributor's license, but some legal language that said something about that. But I'm not seeing it, and I don't remember what it was. So they may not care anymore, uh, or it may be that the stuff in the repo is sufficient for them, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was an oversight, that it was in at one point and then got taken out in some of the revised changes, and nobody caught it. So do we have a version of the spec prior to the spec up T stuff, Hank, still around? Or did the version of the spec before you did the split? Because that's when it would have happened, is when the split to the spec up T split,
Sam,
when it's all one license file. Yeah.
I've written to Drummond about this. So I know that they're talking about updating the spec up T. That's the template for all of this. So I've made a note of the concerns here, and I've put in the questions to Drummond about
Okay.
that. And
Okay.
Nico did the process for Carrie Caesar ACDC. So there was a questionnaire that Nico went through. So if Nico has a link to that then when you are going through, it's not needed for your internal approval, but at steering committee level it is. So if you have a look at that,
Oh,
that
okay.
is,
Well, that could have changed. I'm just saying, I just
yeah,
have a memory of something that the trust for IP said, put this in the spec. They said, put this other thing in the spec, and then they said we don't need the other thing. And I don't recall specifically having a conversation
yeah.
that said don't put the
So
other thing in. But if you guys have a checklist that says this is what's supposed to be in the spec and it was in the
yeah,
spec, then I need to
but
update.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. So I don't have the link. I've got a million links and I can't find it, so I can't give it to you right now. But I know that
okay.
Nico was going through it, and I've asked for the link. And that's for steering committee. And I don't think it said anything specific about the license, because we're going to put the license in the template. So and I apologize for the discombobulation of everything, because we used to have somebody hired, and now it's all volunteers who are like
Yes.
trying to so it's messy, and we're trying to establish a much more clear process, and I apologize. Right
Oh.
now Daryl O'Donnell is going through the exact same process, and he's also following the checklist right now.
Okay. All right. Well, so I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some oversight. And if we could get that checklist, and if something's supposed to be in the spec up T, then maybe we need to know what that is, because that's something to be added to spec up T, but it's not in there yet. So maybe
Yep.
there is something
Yep.
missing.
And so
And
I've written to Drummond to clarify exactly what licensing terms we need to put into the spec up T thing.
Thanks.
yeah, and where they go? Do they go in the actual rendered
Yeah.
spec or just in the repo file? Because right now they're in
Right.
the repo file in Carry. they're correct. The other two specs, those need to be updated. Those got missed. And
Yeah,
so,
that's an issue. That's an
so there's
issue.
two issues for those two.
Yeah,
So as
Yeah,
part of
and then-
time,
technically, when you create a version in GitHub, it does a zip, which includes the license file,
yep,
and then that'll go into Zenodo archive to give it a DOI.
yeah, and that's different from whatever SpecUpT puts in the rendered text. The version in the GitHub is the normative version. The render text should match the GitHub version, but the one that is source code controlled is the GitHub version. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we get
all
that
right.
now.
Yeah.
No
Okay.
issues. Yep.
Wait, excuse me, do you
Go ahead,
need the
Nico.
checklist or?
Yeah, we would love the checklist.
Okay, should I link it in chat?
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And then we can copy and paste it into the meeting notes.
Yeah, just give me a moment.
Great. This is really good.
So then from our point of view, I think, Kent, basically, I would like to just see how this gets resolved in the carry spec. We should run through the checklist and just see if there's anything there that we need to do. If something
Yeah.
is going to change in the carry spec, we should just make sure that we model that. But it does not sound like it is a blocker for us to review the did WebS spec at our working group level, at the carry working group level.
Wait, so just curious, in this case, do you need the completed checklist that we made for the three different specs, the ACDC, Caesar, and carry specs, or do you need the general template?
I think
The general-
either or both probably serves the purpose. What we need to do is we need to know what has to happen in the did WebS spec so that it meets the trust over IP requirements. And I would
Well, that
imagine
would be the general checklist, then,
Sure.
not the specific
then
one.
that will be fine. Let's do that.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. So this is a really good discussion item. We're hammering in, getting specific on what we need to do to get this to a 1.0. I want to add just a couple more details here. Who are the current co-chairs of the Carry Stack Working Group? I imagine is it Sam and Phil?
The chairs, yes, of the Carry Stack Working Group, yes.
Okay, great. All right. So just to review, when we have completed all of our review, Jonathan, and revision, then we'll submit this to Sam and Phil. After we have a final draft, then we will open it for public review. And that'll be a month long. And then after that, then we'll move it forward to the TOIP steering committee for another month-long review. Does that sound right, or did I double up?
I mean, that's close. I think my question would be this, though. So I would say that the spec as it stands today is substantively complete. I would say that stylistically, there are still some changes that I could see being made. I imagine that may happen. Well, I guess once we publish the version 1.0, we'll probably try to avoid making too many changes, even stylistic ones. But I would say that substantively, it's complete. In terms of timing, we have this meeting today, then we have this meeting again a month from now. We also have the Carry Stack Working Group monthly meeting, which happened last week and will also happen a month from last week. If we were to say, if we submit, even if you and I make some changes over the course of the next couple of days, and then asynchronously, through Discord or whatever, submit this to Sam and Phil for their review, the next opportunity to kind of vote on this as a Carry Stack Working Group won't be until the first week or second week in March. Is that correct? And that
That's
would be a
right.
step that's necessary. Like, it's not just that Sam and Phil go, yes. It's like they say, yes, it's okay for us now to vote on this as a Carry Stack Working Group. That would be my understanding. Is that right, Sam? Phil?
Yes, that sounds
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just following the process that I've observed for the other specs. It seems like I do
Yeah.
remember that at least at one point we're like, hey, what does everybody think? And in a meeting
Yeah,
like
that's what I said. Once you
right,
have the final draft,
right.
then in a meeting, which hopefully would be, we need to say this final. We need to have a public review period to,
Mhm.
and then once that public review period completes, then we have another meeting where we vote to approve the specs. So we vote to approve the specs as the final version. We have a public review, and then when the public review ends, if there are no normative changes, then we vote to forward the specs to the steering committee.
Okay, great.
So,
So
you,
if we follow just the natural rhythm of the meetings, the Carry Stack working group meeting in March would be the meeting, Kent, where you and I would say, well, where Sam and Phil would say, we've reviewed the spec and we're ready to open the formal period.
We could do
yep,
that. I wonder
yep.
if we could go ahead.
No, yeah. If you can get it all done before our March meeting, not this meeting, but the main Carry Stack working group meeting, which is the week before, then that would be great.
Yeah, that's part of what I was going to suggest. Since we're in the home stretch here, maybe we could meet a little more frequently just to move the last part of this along, pushed over the finish line. And so I like the idea of us having it completely ready by just the Carry Stack working group. We could bring it up as an announcement, and then just between now and then, asynchronously communicate between me and you, Jonathan. And then if we feel ready, we can let Sam and Phil know. So maybe we all have an opportunity to take a look at it before the Carry Stack working group in case we
Yeah,
wanted to
I
take a
think it
vote
just
that day.
the next step at this point is to have the 1.0 candidate draft ready and reviewed by Sam and Phil before the Carry Stack working group in March.
I like that.
Okay.
So that we can vote on it as a group.
So that in the March Carry Stack working group, as a group, we can vote to open the public review period. And then the question is just going to be how long is that review period? And when do we then vote to submit it formally to the Trust over IP steering committee? If we do nothing special, that vote would happen in the April Carry Stack working group meeting.
Yep.
Okay. We can vote on it as a group.
And
Okay.
I feel like that's okay. I think that's okay. If we have the spec in final format and it has been submitted to the Carry Stack working group, or sorry, if it has been submitted to the Trust over IP steering committee by April, I like that. That is ahead of the Carry Conf. That's also right around the time that the diff recommended process would close. And it means that we as a working group, consider the draft final, and any changes that would happen to the draft at that point would be driven by the Trust over IP steering committee, would largely be, form stuff, not content stuff.
I put
Okay.
in the chat, the next steering committee
Mhm.
meetings on the calendar are March 18th, April 15th, and May 20th.
Yeah, so I
Great.
think we're targeting the April 15th meeting probably because
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah.
the Carry Stack working group meeting isn't it the second, or it's the second
Second.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
which would be sometime before that. April.
Yeah, and it would be great to be able to announce that at the Carry conference later that month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then before we part today, I just want to review the things that we're going to do before that day so that we can hit our target. And Nico, I see that checklist you just added. I'll put it in the notes. Okay, so just one last time, make sure that I've got this all documented here. And then Jonathan, you and I can sort of hash this out
Mm-hmm.
separately. Okay, so the process. In order to get it, I'm going to add a couple steps in the front here. So you could say subcommittee review finish, which is essentially Jonathan Kent with the small little things you've got between now and maybe a week from now. And then after we finish the subcommittee review, we're going to send it to Sam and Phil, which may very likely it's going to happen asynchronously now or between now and let's actually put a date. So when's the next Carry Stack working group meeting? Is that going to be
second Tuesday of March?
Okay, so that's going to be, let me just go. Tuesday, March 10th. Have, okay. By before, significantly before March 10th. Next KS working group meeting. Okay, so we want to have the final draft approved by the co-chairs. Ideally by March 10. Okay, so that means that Sam and Phil, you can expect some communication from Jonathan and I between now and March 10th, just when we've completed our every last edit that we've got, then we'll send it to you two for final review. And then on March 10th, we'll have a meeting where if it's ready, which hopefully it is, we expect it to be by then, we'll say it's in its final form. We'll have a resolution and I imagine that'd be one of the co-chairs that'll make the resolution. And if that is completed and we vote on it, then we'll open it for public review and submit it to the steering committee. Did I get the order of steps right?
We'll open it for public review. The public review period will go until April. Pick whatever date that is. April.
Second Tuesday of April.
Second Tuesday of April is actually the 14th, so it's the day before the steering committee. Because the 1st of April is a Wednesday, so you get a lot of April before you get to the second Tuesday. So it's April 14th. So on April 14th, we would then have a formal resolution that would say we've ended the public review period. We have no substantive changes or comments that need to be addressed. We hereby resolve to submit this formally to the Trust over IP Steering Committee. Yay, nay. That happens on April 14th.
Okay, great.
And then presumably it's on the agenda for the 15th, if possible. If not, then it would go to the next one, which would be in May.
Yep.
But we don't have direct control over that.
Yep. And then you should message, you'll know before the 14th whether there are any substantive things in public review, which I doubt there will be. So you should message the steering committee that you're to put it on their agenda for that Wednesday, so that it's
so the steering committee, what we do is that we verify that the working group, and I apologize, I hope this doesn't change too much, but it should be, we've already done this with Carrie, the other Carrie spec. So the steering committee is going to take the report from the steering committee review committee. So somebody from the steering committee needs to chair that. So last time it was Carla, and Nico is also on the committee. And then so you form your review committee, and then the members do the checklist. And I put the link in there of the checklist of what the spec needs, that you're checking that the spec needs. And the checklist says stuff like, do you have broken links? Are your tables complete? So it's not about the quality of the technical details. It's about, do you have the pieces finished, and are you naming things the same way and stuff like that. And then what the review committee does is they look at the checklist and they decide if that checklist is sufficient, if it has been followed enough, that they then recommend to the steering committee to pass the spec. So the working group is the technical details, and they decide if the technical details get passed. And the steering committee is the dotting the I's and is your specification complete? Do you have all the tables that you said you were going to have, and so on. So if you come to the April 15th meeting with that review committee report form completed, then it's very quick for the steering committee to review that, discuss it, and then presumably pass the specification.
So,
And if you need to, especially if there's enough time in advance, we could move that steering committee meeting review a week later, for example.
thank you for the background. Kent, I mean, my goal would be to work through that checklist as well
Yeah,
ourselves ahead of time, probably close to the same time we submit to Sam and Phil. I mean, there's no reason not
exactly.
to make sure that everything's, like
Yeah,
Don't use I mean the Excel sheet is nice, but in the chat I put the actual forms.
okay.
I found the
Let
links.
me thank you so much. That's awesome.
So
We want this to be painless. Okay, let me put these in the okay. Perfect. I'm going to put these also in our to-dos. Let's grab a to-do.
But
So
Okay, so can I say, I'm sorry to interrupt because we're running out of time. I read through both the form and the spreadsheet, and both say specification licensing text is included and correct. So there is no licensing text in the current
yeah.
carry specs. So does included mean included in the repo, or does it mean that there should be a paragraph in the license? That's what we need. That's what
Yep,
we
we
need.
do need to know that.
I'm going to
We need to
clarify
know
that.
that.
I'm clarifying
And
that.
and for the carry stack working group, we use the OWF license, and that is both a patent and copy license. So there's not two licenses. It's not CC by 4 for copyright. It is the OWF copyright license. So a reference to the OWF 1.0A, which is the final spec license, not the contributor license. So there is confusion about the difference between the two. So the spec itself is licensed with the OWF 1.0A, which is the final spec license. The contributions are performed under the OWF 1.0 contributor license for patent and copyright. And so the contributing refers to that one. The final spec uses the other license.
Carly, if
okay.
you can, yeah, thank you, Sam. Carly, if whatever the mechanism is for you to communicate back to the group, I don't know if you're in the Discord or what the right thing is. If you can just let us know when you find out the
Yeah,
answer to the
yeah.
question you submitted.
Sorry, I was typing the first thing, and the second question that you were just asking the group was precisely which text should be in the license.
Yeah, if any.
What text
in
should be in the spec?
in the
What
spec
licensing
itself.
text needs to go in the spec itself?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
for our case, since we're
The
using the
rendered spec.
OWF 1.0A copyright and patent license for the final spec, the question is where should that license reference appear, and in what places? Because it
Yep.
does appear in the repo, it does not appear in the spec, in the rendered
Okay.
spec.
I'm
Exactly.
going to fill that out, and then I'm going to add it to the checklist also for future specifications. So I'm asking right now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Awesome. This is really good. It feels like we're covering all our bases here. Is there anything else that jumps out at anybody? We've got a good set of dates here from now to the March 9th. We're going to do the subcommittee review completion, which is any last little changes, plus reviewing the review committee report form checklist. We're going to figure out exactly what to do on the copyright patent policy license text if we need it in the body of the spec itself. Sam and Phil, then we'll send it to you for review. Once it's in the right state, goal is March 10th, final draft approved. We'll go through the formal resolution and get it going with the goal of having it ready for the TOIP steering committee review on April 15th, when the dates just happen to line up perfectly. Is there anything else we need to add to this?
Kent, I would just maybe suggest too that the review committee report form, review committee checklist, get clarity on all of that. I think we're going to do a lot of work on that now, but that's not a
Mhm.
blocker to submitting to Phil and Sam.
Okay.
I don't think
True.
those are
Okay.
issues that we'll deal with as we get ready to send it to the
Okay.
steering committee.
Right.
But what
Okay.
we need, and Phil, Sam, please, correct me if you expect something different, but there's kind of two parts to this. There's getting the technical details correct. And that's really, as Carly says, the point of the working group itself to deal with that. Then there's the stylistic and formal aspects that have to be dealt with, and that's kind of the trust over IP steering committee level stuff. So I want us, you and I, to be aware that we're not like hanging up sending this to, you know, Sam and Phil because we didn't figure out the licensing quite yet.
You see.
They should be able
That's
to do a
fine.
review of the technical details without all of that other stuff fully resolved yet, is what I'm saying.
Yes, I agree.
Okay,
Good
cool.
clarification.
All right.
I believe that's
Thanks.
everything that we have for today.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we could double check any last action items here. So we've got the pathway. We put this down below. Let me sort of pull these out of here so they're not duplicated. I'm say C notes.
Oh,
We do
oh,
have
before the meeting ends, Hank, there is a Carey Foundation group meeting following this one. Is that correct? Or is
Exactly.
that not
Well,
happening? Oh, okay.
yes, it happens, and I uploaded the invitation in the chat. It's an image, and it's in 1
Great.
minute.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
So
Sorry for
then,
the interruption. Go ahead.
oh, thank you. All right. So the last little thing here, we've got just a small administrative. Oh, it's 1 minute. My time is showing wrong. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's it for today. Thank you, everybody, for coming. See you at the next meeting.